let us know in the chat your name, where you are joining us from, and yeah, share your LinkedIn. But without further ado, let's go to the next slide. Just get a little housekeeping out of the way, because you might be wondering, if you're not familiar with us, who PowerToFly is. Well, we help organizations recruit high-performing and inclusive teams with exceptional events, sourcing campaigns, and expert guidance. And in fact, right now we're really focusing a lot on product and engineering talent in with AI skills. So if that's you, welcome. And we're also helping folks upskill with AI as well. We have lots of resources for that. We have lots of other events all around the world, and we will have our August Emerging Tech Summit and Job Fair coming up in to the 20th and 21st. So you want to hear more about AI and also join a job fair with companies that are hiring for hundreds of roles all around the world. Check that out. We can also send you some more information. Well, let's go to the next slide. And I just want to share brief code of conduct here. Lots of text, but in summary, it basically says, don't be a jerk. We want to have a really nice and open conversation with you all. And I do like to point out that the content shared during PowerToFly events is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice, but hopefully still advice none the same. So let's go to the next slide. And just so you all know, we are recording this session. We will be sending you that recording after the fact. So the great thing is you don't need to take notes. So just sit and enjoy. But we would love for you to participate. So feel free to write in the chat. Again, let us know where you are in the world. And also feel free to share your LinkedIn. And also, if you have questions for myself or our special guest, we'd love to answer those questions live. We also got lots of questions pre-submitted, and we're going to go through those in just a bit. But let me introduce today's special guest. Sanmaya Mohanty is a community builder, growth marketer, and startup enthusiast with experience across data analytics, digital strategy, and content marketing. And here at PowerToFly, I have the great fortune to work with him on lots of projects, especially our virtual summit series, which is in fact the largest inclusion-based virtual conference in the world. He's been very integral in making that happen, as well as our events for APAC and the India community. So Sanmaya, so glad to be actually sitting down and chatting with you today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob.
I
And
mean, I sit and chat with
yeah,
you all the time, but now it's in a more formal setting.
yeah, absolutely. So for all of you, those of you who don't know, so Rob and I, we work in a very close capacity, and Rob and I, Rob is my manager, and we kind of like interact on mostly a daily basis. But yeah, coming back to this, this is so great to have a session for our Indian audience and get to speak on the broader technicalities of working for a remote company on a day-to-day basis. How does all the things go, and what are the processes involved? What are the technical complications and the tax legalities involved, and all of those stuff. So yeah, ready to go down on that.
Amazing. Well, as you said, PowerToFly, we're a remote first company. In fact, we don't even have an office. We're fully remote. You yourself are based in Bangalore. So how did you first get your job at PowerToFly? Because that might also be, yes, each experience, of course, is unique, but maybe what you did is going to inspire other people. So how did you come to us? It's been a while now.
No, absolutely. So this is for all of our participants as well. Of course, the usual advice which is available on the web is go to all of these sites that share the remote roles, and you can use LinkedIn and all of those regular advice. But the actual thing is, so fully remote roles are so rare and so less that they mostly get filled up within the networking circles before going outwards, or
Mhm.
before getting filled through all of our like sites like LinkedIn, FlexJobs, AngelList, or whatever is out there. So in my case as well, so previously we had our director of marketing, Lawrence, so with whom I connected on, I guess, on a Slack group, because truly it has been like 4 years, I guess. I've been working here since 20, I've been here since what, 2021? Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
I
so.
did, I did connect with her on a Slack group, which was for community builders and developer relation professionals. So like we were chatting, and we got to know that okay, there is something going on with PowerToFly, and I might be a good fit, and that led me to the interviewing funnel. And so at that point of time, we were filling up the summit virtual summit assistant role, and I worked there as a free, kind of individual contributor freelancer for about 3 or 4 months. After which, I kind of joined more formally into a full-time role. So that has been my complete journey. So my suggestion for anybody who's out there looking for a fully remote role: one, of course, do the basics, do the needful, scan LinkedIn, scan AngelList, scan all the platforms, those are available. I'll definitely have a comprehensive resource list that I have compiled specifically for this session, and I'll go over it in the last 5 to 10 minutes, and I'll show you all the things that you need to do, all the search phrases, and all the GitHub repos that you can find. But yeah, apart from that, network, network, and network. Go into those closed Slack groups, go into those LinkedIn groups, and see who are the folks who are posting. Connect with them, because you never know who could lead to your next
Hmm.
role or a next breakthrough in your career. So that's my
Yeah,
advice.
I did not remember that you originally connected with all of us through a Slack group. That's a great resource that I myself don't think about all too often. I like that you mentioned the LinkedIn groups. I know a lot of people also will connect on Discord and things like that
Yeah,
as well. So, but I do think you're right. Like just like coming to events like this one or our upcoming job fair, those are just great ways
yeah,
to connect with people, get your name out there, not only with hiring companies, but with your fellow professionals and building
yeah,
your network that way. I think we haven't done them in a while, but we used to also run hackathons and you were really
yeah,
spearheading that. And that's another great way of like, yeah, just get to know people, be out there in the world. And of course, we're a fully remote company, but we are US based company. I'm sitting in New York right now. So where should people look for US based remote jobs? Because I think that sometimes when people look for remote roles, like it's remote can mean a lot of things to different people.
yeah,
Sometimes you look at remote, but then you actually have to be you can be remote, but you have to be in a certain state in the US.
yeah,
Like there's region based there, or maybe you can be in India, but maybe you have to be in a specific city in India. So there's lots of like fine print that people need
yeah.
to look for. So what should you look for in that regard when you're looking for remote roles or maybe a remote role for a US based company?
No, absolutely. That's a great question, because that is the common pitfall that most folks tend to face, or the biggest roadblock, that okay, when it says remote, but in the fine print it's like remote US, or remote North America. So first of all, don't let that text deter you at first. Ask them whether it's because at some points of time, or in some situations, it's a mandatory requirement, because some companies are not authorized to hire people outside of that location, or they don't have it in their organizational policy to support the tax systems in other countries. So first of all, check if that is the case. Else, for anybody who is sitting in India or any part of the world that is not the US or the North Americas, because most of the roles that I see, or anybody who has been in the out there could check and see that most of the roles that are remote, originating from the North American continent, are mostly US remote, or Eastern time, Pacific time, some sort of fine print like that. So for anybody who is residing out of those regions, I would suggest pitching to be an individual contributor, where you are de facto not an employee, so you don't get the employee benefits for a legal term. Like, for instance, US has some unemployment benefits, that okay, there's a fixed severance pay, that okay, X amount of years of work, dedicates you to X amount of severance, and all of those employee protection laws of your own country. So in that case, one of you could first of all ask, or reach out to someone. Is it like, do you folks allow hiring individual contributors in a remote capacity? So that should get you out of that remote US only block in many cases. And the other suggestion that I have to kind of find fully remote roles, irrespective of region, is to use the native search functionality and the filter functionality of tools like LinkedIn and AngelList, Flex Jobs. These are a few that are really helpful. So you can go to filter for search phrases and terms, filter for anything like US remote, or filter for search phrases like EST or PST, all of those time zone formats, and that should give you a filtered result of remote worldwide. So that'll be
Hmm.
my 2 cents over there.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I often find in my experience, a lot of sales roles will be remote but region focused because they want someone who's
Yes,
in that region, maybe for travel reasons or just the way that they're divvying things up. Tech roles, that can be a lot more open to kind of all over
absolutely.
the place. And I'm thinking part of your pitch, if you're looking for a remote role, and this is, I think, certainly something that you've been a great asset here, is you want people who are in different time zones. And we'll talk about some of the
Yes,
struggles and challenges with time zones in a bit. But at the same time, like here at Power to Fly, we host a lot of events in India and in APAC. So it is very beneficial to have someone
yeah,
who is awake during that time, because if you're in California, for example, like you're not going to get up, or maybe you could get up at 3 a.m., but you're not going to be at your best. So there, same thing for having a coder who's in Europe. That way they can be
yeah,
working hours before other people get on. So there's a lot of benefits there. And we'll talk, of course, about some of the challenges as well. But one last thing, kind of in the finding remote roles area, is what are some of the common reasons, Samaya, that you've heard for companies passing on international applicants, and what are some ways that people could overcome those barriers?
absolutely. So before I answer that, I want to tell that in the resources file that I was mentioning, like I've created a detailed table that, okay, this is the reason, this is the solution, like kind of a 10-step table with all the reasons, which we will get to in some time. But to answer your question, the top 3 or 4 things that come to my mind is one, time zone overlap. So all the companies, irrespective of remote or traditional, you need your folks to talk to each other, communicate each other. Of course, many things can happen async, but the direct meeting, or the human element of working together, that is also very important, because many things get lost in translation while we are chatting in messages. So or like doing it async. So there should be, and many roles like sales and CSMs, they need to have a direct line of communication with their clients to enable something, or to go about their line of work. So most companies, one of the main major concerns about for most companies to consider international candidates, or candidates who are residing in a different time zone than what their official, what the company's official business hours are, is one, this meeting, or sync meeting, direct meeting, availability. So one of the things that folks can do is to kind of make it mention it explicitly in their resume, or LinkedIn, that available to overlap with EST time zone for 6 hours, 4 hours, or X amount of hours. Because in most companies that I have seen in my personal experience, most of the calls are done in the first half, and a very
Hmm.
little calls are scheduled in this later half. So first half, for instance, in my case with PowerToFly, it's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. That's when majority of our calls are scheduled. And that time, for in my India time, that converts to 6:30 p.m. to kind of around 10:30 p.m. So that block. I mean, it's not an outrageous time. Of course, I'm a different case. I'm a night owl, so I usually sleep at
Yes, you
around
are.
3 a.m. And irrespective of whether, at the time when I was working for Indian companies as well, at that time also my sleep schedule was like that. So So I'm a different case, but for people who want to lead a normal life and sleep at around like 11 p.m., just like normal humans do. So don't take my advice. I'm also trying to improve on that regard of sleeping late. But for most cases, you can provide an overlap of 4 to 5 hours each day with Eastern time. And if it's PST, it's even better. It's 1 hour behind the Eastern time, so it's even better. So yeah, try to mention it explicitly in whatever form of communication you're doing with the hiring manager, through your LinkedIn, through your CV, that you're available to overlap, give an overlap of 3 to 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours with the time zone with the in which that company functions.
Hmm.
So that would be option one. Then the option two, and this is like the biggest reason for which many organizations do not want to consider international candidates, is the tax implications of hiring an employee beyond their national border. So for that, the best, in this scenario, there's only a yes and no answer. Like you can only pitch to the company whether they're open to hiring individual contractors. So in that way, they are absolved, or they don't have to take any responsibility of the taxation of finances. So they just release you the payments, and it's your duty, and the obligation lies with you to do all the taxes and the provident funds and all of those things. So try to pitch to the company that you're interested in whether they're open to hire remote individual contractors. So in theory, an individual contractor is someone who works. I mean, it could be a full-time role in terms of responsibilities, but from a payment structure and tax obligation point of view, you're technically not an employee, because being an employee means some portion of, like, at least for the US, some portion of your salary is like you get dental care, like the insurance and
Yes.
all the added benefits. So those are not available. Like those standard employee benefits are not available to remote contractors. And but like in terms, so you get compensated in terms of money. So you have to take care of handling the dual taxation, filing the forms all by yourself. So try to pitch it. And in my experience, so I have worked with I guess 3 remote roles as of now. And apart from that, with several contracts, individual contracts. So I haven't seen any most companies not having an issue with having hiring an individual contractor. So try to pitch yourself as an individual contractor. Search about the taxation laws in your own country. Like for instance, in India, it's Section 44 AD. I'll share all of these, in the final resources document that I have. But yeah, that those two are the major concerns. But apart from that, like polishing up your communication skills and getting to know what kind of practices, cultural and communication protocols are followed within that organization, getting to use all the async tools like using Loom videos, recording
Hmm.
audio messages, because in remote teams you're never sure whether the other person is awake or not, or are they
Yes.
available. So at that point of time, being a pro at async communication tools becomes pretty much important. So, and that's not a difficult task to master. So I think it's pretty imperative that you put some of your effort in improving your communication and asynchronous communication skills, so that
Yeah,
you can
I think
sell it something.
communication is really top there. And especially if anyone who's watching now or listening later who's like an engineer and might not think of themselves as a communicator necessarily or storyteller first, I think there's definitely worth investing in those skills, using generative AI to help you as needed, but then making it your own after the fact. And I think when you are applying for a role or you're in the interview process, really, if it's a technical role, also I think highlighting those communication skills and also being very clear when you are emailing back and forth with a person that you are speaking well in that way, and that you are communicating well in your emails and your interviews and things like that. Because I think, as you said, Samai, it's even more important because there's a lot of asynchronous work. And also, I would say highlighting some of those tools that you mentioned. Say, hey, I'm not just going to send you a Slack message when you're asleep, but I'm going to send you a Slack message and then also send you a video afterwards that's going to explain this message more, because I don't know if you, as the person getting this, wants to just read this or actually wants to absorb it as a video. So I think really practicing those. But you
Absolutely.
mentioned time zones, so I'd love to kind of touch on those because, as you said, you are maybe not the most average person because you'll be up at 3 a.m. my your time, and I'm like, what are you doing still up? But what are some of those ways that are best to communicate across time zones? And I'd also add in there, how do you set boundaries if you are a person who wants to go to bed at 11 o'clock and your manager is still awake and asking you things? Like, how do you have that conversation? And then I think, aside from that, like, what are other tips for just communicating across these vast time zones?
Absolutely. So one of the first things about, setting up a boundary, of course, I kind of don't work in silos, and like I stay up late. That has been my way of life since I was like 17 or 18. So I'm kind of like a night owl. At that time, my brain functions the most and I'm able to think clearly within the silence. So that's me. But for most people who want to function within the normal circadian rhythm, my suggestion would be one, like leverage the calendar tools the most. If your
Hmm.
organization uses Outlook, Google Calendar, or whatever that is, every calendar has something called availability and non-availability zones. So set those up. Like for instance, if I'm giving an example of somebody who lives in India who wants to work for a EST based company or Eastern time based company, which is located in, let's say, New York, and this person in India wants to sleep at, let's say, 11 p.m. So you can configure your calendar in a way that your calendar is open from the 9 a.m. Eastern time, which is 6:30 p.m. here in India, till 11 p.m. And later on, the next slots open up from, from I guess like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. So anybody who wants to book any direct communication or direct call with you, you can explicitly mention through your calendar that, okay, these are the slots I'm available for a call. If it's anything async, or you can directly connect with me or via Slack DMs, or we can use a Loom. So 4 to 5 hours block each and every day for a direct meetings. That's more than enough for many use cases. Of course, there'll be some scenarios here and there where there could be a edge case scenario, and something requires your help at an odd hour. So in for that case, you can put your additional, additional ways to or methods to contact you, like a WhatsApp or maybe your
Hmm.
FaceTime number or something, so that if the need arises, if an emergency arises, you could be contacted during your alternate, like credentials. So
Plus,
that would be number one.
us here in the US, like, I feel like people in the rest of the world never realize that we don't use WhatsApp in the US. So it's like, you sometimes you have to also, I think, communicate with your manager. It's like, I'm on WhatsApp. You might have to download this extra app. That's a good way to reach me too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, like on the same tone, like many folks use WhatsApp, many folks use Signal. So download all the apps. So if most folks in your organization are using, let's say, Signal, so be the person to download Signal rather than
Yeah.
forcing everyone to please come to WhatsApp and message me there.
Yes.
Don't.
Yes. Exactly.
So so that's one part, and the second part is kind of practice. One of the other things that I do is Pomodoro. I work in Pomodoro sprints, like 45 minutes of work, then a
Hmm.
15-20 minutes of
Yes.
like just winding down, getting away from my computer, because with the time zones blending in, my day getting ended, like when my US work day gets started, my usual day here in India kind of comes to an end and the evening starts. So it's very easy to forget the boundaries and get going with the flow. And one day merges into another, and before you know it, half of the year is gone. So to stop falling into that loop and stop yourself from burning out, use Pomodoro, practice some meditation, and set clear boundaries and timelines while communicating. So let's say if Rob assigned me a task, I could clearly and again, the other fine, like mention that I'd like to do, which I you like whenever you're telling something that okay, I'll get it done by midday, explicitly mention that okay, by midday ET time, because midday for you could mean something and midday for the other person could mean something. So be explicitly clear in the communication that you're doing with your manager or with whoever you are collaborating. Set clear timelines that okay, this would be done by XY, the end of this week, ET time, or whatever the time that you are promising, and set clear timelines, set clear goals, and put like for meetings, if there are meetings needed, kind of try to schedule them within these blocks. Everybody PowerToFly has been like really amazing, and apart from PowerToFly, all the organizations I've ever worked in, I mean, I have never faced a problem with people, or with folks on the other side kind of adjusting to a morning based call, because in many organizations that is the norm. Most of the normal meetings are held during the morning time within like 2 p.m. ET.
Mhm.
So communicate those needs, and everybody is super accommodative, and you will be welcomed, and yeah, nobody wants you to uh, give up your life to work for them. So
Yes.
folks are super cool, super chill, and super accommodative. So just ask, and yeah,
Yeah, I
things
think
would
that's
be.
the key. And what I'm thinking too from a manager perspective is I might ask like you, oh, do you have an update on this task? And that can sound like critical. It can be sound like me
Yeah,
saying like, where is this? But it's really more because I can't just turn to you in the office and just say like, "Oh, do you have an update on this?" Like, is even sometimes when it comes through Slack, it might
yeah,
sound more intense than it actually
yeah,
is. But I think
absolutely.
just know that like, if your manager is sitting, especially in another country, another time zone, then they're probably just trying to get an update. And what we also try to do here is you and I have a weekly one-on-one where we can catch up, and maybe that's just going to be 5 minutes, but it's a good chance to kind of go over everything. And what some other people do, we don't do it here as much as, but you could even put like once a week a 30-minute or 15-minute office hours. Just say like, I'm going to
Absolutely.
be in this Zoom room for 15 minutes at this time every week. If you want to hop in and like ask me questions about anything, I'm just gonna be there and then I'm gonna close the Zoom room. Like, but then people know, okay, I can find Sanmaya in this room every week on Wednesday morning for 15 minutes. So lots of different tricks, but I think the biggest thing, as
Absolutely.
you said, is calendars. If you're using Slack, making sure you're setting your away message up when you're actually away and things like that. And what about also kind of culture aspects? Because I find even if a company says, "Oh, we're a global company," but if they are at all based in America, then it is going to be a
An
US culture.
American
Like the
company. Yeah,
holidays
yeah.
that they're going to follow for the most part are going to be US holidays. If there's world events that are happening, it's probably going to be very US centric. So how do you adjust from a cultural standpoint when there's a holiday that might be in India that we don't have in the US and you need to take off, or maybe another kind of world event that's very big that we might not be aware of? Like, what are ways to deal with those situations?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one of the first things that I'd like to mention, that getting to know about the US culture and the way things work. So Hollywood has been like a key enabler. So via Hollywood, I guess almost everybody who is not living under a rock has a good amount of idea or glimpse, because everybody here in India, or in most parts of the world, have watched Breaking Bad, or like all the other series that we have grown literally fond of. Like I have watched Suits. I'm a huge fan of Suits, Breaking
Uh-huh.
Bad, all of those things. So through all of these movies and series, you get a good glimpse of what that society is, on like how people talk, or how people communicate, and things like that, through movies, and through almost half of the catalog of Netflix, and things like that. So if you so yeah, I mean, everybody has a good understanding, or at least a basic understanding of what communication styles are followed, or how people talk to each other, all of these things. So just put that into perspective. So that makes easier for many people to know that, okay, this is how things are done. And then, or this is how people talk. I mean, how things are done could be a very specific thing to specific companies. So in my case, it was never very difficult to understand, okay, what 4th of July is, why it is important, what was the Civil War, because, I'm a history buff. I try to
Hmm.
learn things and try to find common fee or commonalities of interaction, because culture and arts and movies, they are same across the world. So like so for all of our audience, Rob is a huge Marvel fan, and I'm also. So every time we speak, I'm like, what are the new movies you've watched? So that becomes a common anchor point for both of us. So find your anchor points, because we are not that different as it sounds like. So we are different in some aspects, but there are many aspects of commonalities as well. So try to anchor to those aspects of commonality, and you will feel that people are kind of the same, irrespective of where they're located. So there are certain things here and there, but that helps. Then coming back to the second thing, how in terms of culture, try like this is mostly org specific, but if you're in a managerial position and you want to implement this, try to have like so previously we used to have sessions like, okay, what with a singular theme, like what is your favorite anime character or
Hmm.
something like that, through culture ramp and all of these things. So these kind of team bonding exercises or team bonding activities kind of help gel into, or you could have similar music tastes, for instance. So that helps with the cultural aspects of it, or
Yes.
easing into the culture of the company or the organization that you're working with. So that helps. And in terms of like the other question that you asked about taking the holidays, or let's say if it's Diwali, so, and if nobody knows what that means, try to like educate, okay, what is the backstory of Diwali, or or any other festivity that you might need to take the leave. Communicate that in advance, that before the start of the year, you can block out all the dates. I mean, all the dates are available in Google Calendar, so you can pick those dates. Okay, these are the days which are the national holidays for me. And India being a huge like diverse culture, so every region has its own holidays and every religion has its own holidays. So like there are a million things to consider. So according to your scenario, what are the holidays, or what are the things that you need to celebrate, you can clear it in advance, because the other folks might not be aware of it. So it's your duty to let them know, okay, these are the days that are important for me,
Hmm.
and why it is important. So yeah, things like that. And in my experience, everybody has been super supportive and accommodative. So
Yeah. And I would say we're very lucky here at PowerToFly because we basically have unlimited PTO and really no
yeah,
set holidays because we do have people all over the world. But I would say if you're working for a company that has their US holidays off, so Independence Day, the 4th of July is off, but of course you're sitting in India, that day doesn't necessarily matter to you,
yeah,
but you want to be off for Diwali, I would go to your manager and say, hey, I know the company's supposed to be closed on this day, but what if I worked on the 4th of July? I'm there, I can get some projects done. I'll be available if also any escalations come up, and I'll take this other day off
yeah,
instead. Like trade off there. And in fact, the manager might like, ooh, it's great to have somebody
yeah,
online just in case anything goes wrong and that they can be working on things. So I think it is good, as you said, at kind of the beginning of the year. Don't wait until the holiday comes up.
yeah,
At the beginning of the year, say these are all the days I'm looking to take off, and I see we have these other US holidays off. Can we compromise and trade some of these out as well? So we'll get to your doc in just a moment, but my one last question for you, because you are a technical expert, especially compared to me, is what tech tools would you recommend for anyone who is working remotely, asynchronously, anything, especially maybe in the Gen AI world as well? Like, what do you use that helps you work, whether your day job or just like
yeah.
communicating? across time zones.
Absolutely. So for communicating, our team at PowerToFly uses Slack, and Slack has this amazing feature called huddles. So it's like,
Mhm.
calling the other person sitting next to you. So you can just call them. But, so the first rule of asynchronous communication is whenever you are communicating or, like unless it's an emergency, keep that in mind that the other person might be engrossed in some other task, so they might not be able to reply to you in a second, just like in a real world scenario that, okay, hey Rob, and Rob is looking at me, but in this case is literally not right next to me. So when I send a message, it might be that he is working on some other important stuff and he hasn't opened that notification as of yet. So always be mindful that this is a real scenario, that there would be a time delay, so
And we'd
keep
like
that
to
in mind
say
before.
to escalate
Yeah,
the medium, not the message. So
yeah,
if
absolutely,
you sent it in a Slack channel where lots of people are in and you didn't get a reply, try DMing it rather than like suddenly it's in
absolutely.
all caps and you're throwing emojis in, right? Like just try a different method. And if you don't hear from there, try an email like before you start to
Absolutely.
get, but before the emotion starts coming through the message.
Absolutely. So that's one. And then, in the second part of using tools, I would suggest everyone to use a note taker for,
Mhm.
all the meetings that they become a part of, so that you don't, because, in a 30-minute meeting, it might become a task to remember all the individual things, or maybe a small thing that skips your mind. So it's always better to enable the transcripts or have a AI note taker come in. So that's the other suggestion that I have. Then in terms of asynchronous communication, I heavily use Loom. The Loom has a like a 5-minute limit, so I use free Boom Share. It's an open source alternative to Loom. So it's like it has no limits on how long the message can be recorded. So you can check those out. In terms of gathering resources or anything, I use Perplexity. In terms of the Gen AI tool, so it has a suite of all the other models built in. So you can, for instance, I use Grok for crafting, like the Grok LLM within Perplexity for crafting all of my messages or emails, and for all the other things where I need to break something into a chunk, I use Claude, Sonnet, Thinking. Those are the models that I mostly
And I
use.
would say too,
And
there, your company might have a specific
yeah,
generative AI model
absolutely
that they want everyone to use. So like just check with
true.
them if there's a specific tool that they are specifically interested in.
Absolutely.
Well,
So
this has
yeah,
been so
those
great. Thank you for all of these insights. And in our last 5 minutes together, I'd love for you just to kind of walk through some of the things that you've prepared, and we'll make sure we get this to everyone who registered for the event as well. But yeah, I would love to see some of
absolutely.
these greater insights that you've put together.
Absolutely. So are you able to see my screen, Rob?
Yes, we can.
Absolutely. So I have kind of created this entire detailed repository with all the information, all the links, all the tools that I use, how anybody who wants to get into a remote role should approach this process, what are the communication protocols, all of those. So we will be sending the link to it, over the post-event email. So you should be able to, kind of see it. So first of all, what does it take to succeed in US remote companies? Time zone optimization, culture. So all of the things we kind of, grazed over it. In terms of what are the places where somebody should look for US based remote roles, Angel List is the primary one for startups. Followed by remote, flex jobs, and all of this in addition to LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the basic layer, and you could complement it with all of these tools. Then for tech people, you have all of these repositories, awesome remote job, and there's this established remote, like for instance, GitLab is a company that has a remote DNA. For instance, PowerToFly is a company that has a remote DNA. So since our inception in 2024, we have been remote first. So it wasn't a principle that we became remote after the pandemic. So we were remote prior to that. So we have remote DNA. So there's this company, there's this GitHub repository called Established Remote that kind of has a list of all the companies that has a remote DNA from the inception. Then all of these are the newsletters that you should subscribe to. Then, as I was mentioning previously, to search for like all of those fine prints, like is it remote US or is it remote worldwide? So you can search, use the Boolean operators in the advanced filter section of Google or LinkedIn or any search tool that you see. That okay, you can use OR operators and AND operators to see US company or US based and all of these things. Then coming back to okay, what are the major things or the issues that US based employers have, and how you can mitigate those. So there's this thing called time zone. If somebody has a time zone concern, then you can highlight overlap. What your overlap hours would be. You can show your flexibility in terms of communication doubts. You can show a portfolio with clear documentation, the video introductions, all of those things. In terms of legal complexity, as I previously mentioned, like setting yourself up as an individual contractor. So all of those solutions mention Deal and Remote.com experience, because Deal and Remote are some of those companies that work as an intermediary and sort. So you would be sitting in India, you would be the employee of Deal.com or Remote.com, but Deal would receive the payment from the US employer, and that would Deal would act as an intermediary. So all of those things, and in terms of payments, you can mention Skydo, Wise, or direct ACH payments as well, so that to kind of get over the payment complications, the cross-border payment complications. So all of these things. Then in terms of cultural adaptations, if there are daily updates, you can use Slack and Teams, video calls, Zoom and Meet. If there are any quick questions, Slack DMs, provide context, be specific, all of those things. Use regular one-on-ones, as Rob mentioned. Then, in terms of time zone management, so use some tools like World Clock Pro. So I use a Mac, and on the top bar, I always have the New York time displayed. So, for instance, right now it's 9:13. So I don't have to go through the loops to know okay, what time is it for the other person. And I want to show something. I want to show you my calendar, how it's set up. So it shows the New York time and the India time side by side. So at any given point of time, I can see, okay, 11 a.m. in India time, what is it in the New York time? So you can set your calendar up like this. So those are like the small tools and suggestions for you to make yourself ready for the remote work scenario. Then, as I mentioned, Pomodoro, meditation, exercise, so that you don't burn yourself up, because it's very easy to forget your boundaries and get yourself carried away. The other thing that I want to kind of go over, which is very important, is the taxation and the legal payment consideration. So for Indian folks, there's this thing called Section 44 AD. So if you are kind of registering as for your employer, if you are showing up as an individual contractor, so these are the sections that you need to take a look at, and how you can optimize your employment contract, the monetary inflow, and all of the regulations. So all of these things are mentioned over here. And these are the platforms that offer zero forex markup, so you don't lose a ton of money in the conversion. And yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the Gen AI industry trends. Since I am kind of so I have been a dev rel in my life, so developer relations. So I kind of bridge between the marketing side of things and the technical side of things. So for folks who want to see all the technical roles, and Gen AI space is picking up a lot of speed recently. It's a hotcake sector. For many companies are hiring like crazy with $1 million packages. So if you want to get in, these are the tools, and I've also compiled some of the GitHub repositories that you should take a look at, and some of the projects that you should see. Then this is the action plan. How if somebody is at level 0 and they want to level up and get in a position to get a remote role within the next 60 to 90 days. So here's a 30, 60, 90-day action plan with the checklist. Set up your profiles, create a compelling LinkedIn profile, relevant Slack and Discord, like the internal communities, to increase your networking game. So all of these things are mentioned over here. We will be sharing this resource with with the post event email. So stay tuned to take a look. And I'll share this resource alongside a form, so that if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via that form, and I'll try to answer as many as possible. So
Yes,
thank you so
I'm
much,
sure
Rob.
expect
This
lots
is
of questions.
wonderful.
Thank you so much. This is great. Yeah, so everyone should have that in your inbox by tomorrow, along with the
Yeah,
recording from today. So check that out, complete that form if you have other questions. And just like to wrap up by saying, yes, you can also always look for remote roles on Power to Fly. So when the location
absolutely.
box, just type remote in, you should see, as we said, take a look at that fine print there, but you'll see those there. And we'll also send you a link to our upcoming August virtual summit and job fair that will be focusing on emerging tech. So if you want to learn more about AI, we're going to have a full day of workshops around that, and then a full day of networking with some companies that are actively hiring, including in India. So thank you all for spending your evenings with us. We will be back soon with more virtual meetups for our India community. So please check your inboxes for that as well. And have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rob, and see you in Slack.